So let me just make a few observations. First, these were uniformly excellent briefings, so let's again applaud our briefers for an excellent job. And what I like to do at this point in the semester is talk a little bit about why we put you through all this and what this is all about. Because, like I said, we're not doing it just because we're masochistic, although there is an element of that, I suppose. But we're doing this because the process of learning and of moving from issue to issue is central to being a sustainability professional. And so I know a lot of us are attracted to one issue or the other, whether it's climate change or locally sourced food or whatever it is that attracted you into this field that is your passion now. The way this field works is you find yourself as a professional moving from issue to issue. Personally, I started in the Water Act in 1977 when my mentor was on Jimmy Carter's transition team and got pulled into EPA even though he knew absolutely nothing about environmental protection. I was doing my dissertation on how the public should participate in water management planning, and I went down to Washington to help him out. But then the next issue was toxic waste and Superfund, and the next issue was leaking underground storage tanks. And then I got involved in forest preservation and wildlife preservation, and and I could go on in urban sustainability planning. So you're going to find in your career that you go from issue to issue. And what we're trying to do over these 2 semesters is teach a process, a mental model, so that when a new environmental issue is thrown at you by your boss or by the situation you're in, you start thinking about, okay, what's the science of this problem? What's the science of the solution? How do I understand it? How do I explain it? What experts do I need to communicate with to really get my arms around what this problem is? Where did the problem come from? Who are the stakeholders? So first, you go through this process of learning about the problem itself and framing it. And then you look at this policy, whether it's a piece of legislation or a proposal, whatever it is. You start to say, wait a minute, this thing is huge, and the problem's here and the solution's here, and how does this legislation make a dent in that problem? How does this policy really work at addressing the problem? You'll hear me say very often that public policy doesn't solve problems, it makes them less bad. So we have cleaner air in this city today than we had when I was growing up. In New York City in 1963, apartment buildings used to burn garbage in incinerators. There was a haze over the city. The 1970 Air Pollution Control Act made that illegal. You can't do that anymore. Okay? So, but it's not that the air is pristine around here, believe me. But it's a lot better than it was in 1963. And it's a lot better today than it was when the Clean Air Act was passed. And that's the kind of profession that you're finding yourself in. And we're going to be working on these problems for a long time. So the good news for those of you who want to be sustainability professionals is there's plenty of work to do. They're making more people, and they're making more economic growth, and they're not making more natural resources and land. So we have this kind of expanding pie, and we have this steady state existence that we have to somehow manage. And we have proven we can do it. We actually know how to do this. The idea that you cannot grow the economy without polluting is simply untrue. You can, through the application of ingenuity and technology, do that. These bills were all efforts to do just that, and to try to break into some of the problems that we need to address. So you now have in your brain, in your collective experience, an approach to solving this problem that ends up in some pretty prosaic stuff, like how many people are going to do this? How do we program startup? How do we get this thing underway? How do we know whether anything's even happening in this program? How do we measure success? All of which now you have experience doing in a problem-solving exercise, and you watched other people do in 4 other policy areas. So that's what we did in the summer and fall. And along the way, you saw output 3 or output 5 or whatever outputs you were involved in. But I want you to step back and look at the totality of what you've learned, because it was learning by doing. There's no textbook for this. And you went back and forth, and you fought a little bit, you argued a little bit, you were guided a little bit, hopefully by your faculty advisor, and you came up with 5 really reasonable approaches to the first year, to just starting these new programs. And you know how to do something that very few people that you're going to be working with over the next few years know how to do. And you have that in your head. You've also worked together under tight deadlines in groups, led by students that you didn't vote for, that we selected for you, who had the job of being both peers and leaders at the same time, and I think performed really well in that process. So let me take a moment and let's applaud all of our managers so far. So let me mention what happens next. Now, we're now ready to unleash you onto real problems. So the faculty met yesterday and started to go through your priorities on what kind of projects you're interested in. We have started that process of identifying clients and projects, and probably over the next couple of weeks we'll resolve those and communicate that to you probably between semesters. I think they're all interesting, they're all exciting, and they all reflect your interest, at least based on the survey that we did. So we've taken several semesters of preparation in the simulation so that when you do a client project, you're really well prepared for it. And I think the results over the years, if you go and look at the workshop, you'll see that that we've done some really spectacular work in this program. Now, I understand from Laura we have some guests here today, people who are prospective students. If you're a prospective student or coming here next year, raise your hand, please. Okay, so those of you who are here now, please, after the session's over, make a point of talking to these prospective students and either tell them how great it is or warn them off. It's really up to you. I hope that you think it's a good program. I think the quality of our student body is certainly quite high. And part of what we're trying to do here, and this is really what this is all about, is we are now part of a network of hundreds and hundreds of sustainability professionals all over the world that have gone through this program and the other programs of the Earth Institute. And the way we're going to address this problem is by training people to be sustainability leaders, and that's what you are. Believe it or not, we're almost 2/3 through this program. And I know it's a kind of shock to the system. All the other SEPA students just showed up 90 days ago, but you've been here a little longer, and you're almost out the door. So don't leave too soon, though. We've got a lot of work to do next semester. And I also want to thank our faculty advisors this semester. And look forward to working with you all next semester. Have a good end of your semester.